What's up, everyone? Welcome to this week's edition of the 49ers cross-examination. Today I have a Tampa Bay Buccaneers insider for SI.com, I'm in that network too. This is JC Allen, does a great job covering the Buccaneers. I got 5 questions for you.
Let's do it.
One, because Niner fans don't know anything about the Buccaneers. We're completely stuck in our own world here on the West Coast. What are the strengths of this Buccaneers team?
So I think you start off on the offensive side of the ball. Even though they lost guys like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, Liam Cohen has this team operating at a different level than they have in the past. The biggest strength right now is the offensive line, obviously anchored by Tristan Wirfs and Luke Gedeke. Should make some good battles against Nick Bosa this weekend. And they're getting a lot of push in the run game, top 10 running team after finishing dead last the last 2 years. But they're also doing a great job in pass protection. A lot of these sacks, we call them Baker sacks here, where he pretty much gets himself into trouble and gets himself sacked. But they've been doing a great job of holding up in pass protection. They've been doing a great job at opening up lanes for the running back. And part of that is when Liam Cohen came in, they really wanted to run this mid-zone, inside zone, outside zone scheme. But the Bucs, their guys are very athletic for it. They can do it. But right now, they're just a better team at running gap, power, duo, pin pull. So they're going back to basics and doing what they do best, and it's really improved the running game behind a guy like Rashad White, Bucky Irving, Sean Tucker. All 3 of those guys can catch out of the backfield. All 3 of those guys have had big games for them this season. And they're getting contributions from guys stepping up. You know, Cade Otton, their tight end, has really taken that step into that next echelon of tight ends. He currently has 3 games of 8 receptions or more, a touchdown in each one of those, and also over 75 yards. He's the second to do it in NFL history. Travis Kelce's the only one to do it. He did over 6 games. He's done it over 3 games. So he's really stepped up in the absence of Chris and Mike. Chris obviously gone for the season. Mike will be back after the bye week, hopefully. But the guys like Sterling Shepard, whose career was basically dead and over with in New York, guys like Trey Palmer, Jalen McMillan when he's healthy, and Ryan Miller of all was an unsung hero. He's a former tight end, undrafted free agent that stepped up, caught the game-tying touchdown for the Bucs. So Cohen's got these guys operating. Everyone's bought into this offense, and I think that's right now is the strength of the team. Still scoring over 24 points even without these guys over the last 2 games, scoring over 30 points for the year. That's the biggest strength for the Bucs right now is their offense.
What are their biggest weaknesses?
Weaknesses right now are the receivers. Part of that is those receivers they're fringe number 3 guys at best. And they're getting the most out of them, but at some point the most out of them isn't going to be enough. Their biggest weakness, though, however, is on the defensive side of the ball. The middle of the field has been a terrible spot for them this season. They had a better game against the Chiefs. They allowed 10 receptions for 85 yards and a touchdown, if you want to call that better, but they got smoked for over 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 18 receptions by Kirk Cousins in week 5. He attacked the middle of the field again, not to that same level, but over 100 yards and a touchdown again in the rematch that they had in week 8. So the middle of the field has been a huge struggle. KJ Britt, who played very well for them last year towards the end of the season after he replaced Devin White, has been a liability in coverage. Teams can attack him. This matchup between him and George Kittle and even Levante David, who's lost a step, still one of the better inside linebackers in the league, but surely can't cover the way he used to. That's going to be a huge spot for them to watch. And there's other spots, too, on that defense. Third down defense has been atrocious. Last week, Mahomes completed 11 of 12 passes on third down to move the sticks. They went 12 of 18 overall. He had a touchdown on that, 3 touchdowns on third down as well. And it's been a really trouble spot for them. They're down their top corner. One of their top corners in Jamel Dean, stepping in at Josh Hayes, who was more of a nickelback last year and a special teams guy. Actually led the NFL in special teams tackle. They had an undrafted free agent, Tyreek Funderburk, who's athletically good, but he's just raw and hasn't had the reps. So, I mean, that left cornerback spot is a spot you can attack. Third down, they've really struggled. Middle of the field, they really struggled in. And really getting pressure with base set. Now, last week they did it against the Chiefs, 4 sacks from the interior, 2 by Vea, 2 by Kalijah Cansey. But the edge rushers, their star guys, their top 3 edge rushers, Joe Tryon-Shrinka, Yaya Diaby, and Anthony Nelson, all have 5 sacks combined, which is tied with Vita Vea. So while they're getting good pressure, 173 pressures on the year by this team, the outside linebackers aren't getting home. They're not finishing. and they're having trouble getting home, without blitzing, and that's been a real factor for them as well.
When I think of the Bucs in the past, I would think of a really well-coached defense with Todd Bowles, who brings a ton of pressure, and maybe not the best coached offense. Like, what does Byron Leftwich really do?
Oh, I mean, God, don't start there.
You know what I'm saying? So, like, now it's weird to look at them. It's like, okay, well, they're a really well-coached offense, but what is Todd Bowles doing? Like, what's up with his defense? Where's the pressure? Where are the blitzes? So, like, can you sort of talk a little bit about Bowles and Cohn? Like, one's doing a great job. What is he bringing? I know it's his first year there, and what's going on with Bowles?
Yeah, I think we'll start on the defensive side. I think it's just lack of players. Okay. I think it's lack of talent. Recency bias is great when you're in the moment, but when you start to have it play out. That Lions game gave a lot of Bucs fans, majority of Bucs fans hope, and I think the Bucs hope that KJ Britt could be an every down type of guy. Hasn't worked out, and unfortunately, Jason Light and the team, they did a good job at acquiring depth. They had Servassier Dennis, who was supposed to be a big part of that package with him coming on in coverage downs. He's lost for the season. Their number 3 cornerback Bryce Hall, who started 5 games last year and started a full year for the Jets. He's out for the season. So that depth has taken tremendous hit already. And they didn't make a move at the deadline. They don't really have the guys behind them. So it's a lot of the talent there. They don't have a number 1 edge rusher. They don't have a guy teams have to game plan around. That's been a big problem too. Again, getting home with base pressure. So I just don't think he's got the talent. And I don't think that's Bowles' fault, really. Because if you look at it, last year was the Brady Bill. This year was, we got to re-sign your own guys, Antoine, Tristan, Baker, Mike, Levante. And you're also still taking dead cap hits for Ryan Jensen and Shaq Barrett, which they'll take next year as well. So Bowles has never really had an opportunity to go out and say, hey, let's bring in this guy. Let's get this dominant guy. And, they'll say, like, people hit free agency for a reason. Well, there's still some good guys to be found in free agency that can help your team. They tried to get Randy Gregory, who was with you guys last year. That didn't work out. He was a no-show.
I told you that.
Yeah, he hasn't been great. They did get Jordan Whitehead back, and Jordan Whitehead had a really strong start to the season. He's kind of fell off a little bit. They lost Antoine Winfield for 4 games. Kalijah Kancey was out for like 6 games before he came back. In fact, Antoine played the first game, but didn't play again until week 7 against the Ravens. Kalijah didn't play until week 7 against the Ravens. So both of those guys were gone for a large part of the season so far, and they're working their way back in. Zion McCollum has been absolute stud at right cornerback. He's favorite for All-Pro right now. In fact, Pete Prisco had him in his midseason All-Pro. He's been phenomenal. But they just don't have the rest of the guys, and I think that's hurt them. I think a lot of the times too is teams expect Bowles to send pressure, so they put extra emphasis during the week to get rid of the ball quickly. And when they're doing that, Shaq Barrett talked to me last year. He's like, we're getting back there. We're getting the pressure, but these quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball so fast. And that's league-wide. They're getting rid of the ball at a faster rate that it's hard for them to get down. And, without that premier guy that can really wreak havoc, that's been an issue. They're hoping that the inside pressure of Vea and Kancey can funnel things more out to the outside and get some more sacks with those outside linebackers. But that's been the issue with Bowles this year. And I think on offense, it's just Cohen comes in with a system that's very similar to Canales' system, very quarterback friendly. They're giving Baker a lot more responsibility at the line to check into different things and be able to, get into the right play. And the offense is just completely bought in, and they have performed at a high level because of that, because of the experience, because of the knowledge, because Cohen put so much on their plate early that when they're doing installs, it's like the back of their hand, and they know it, that they're getting guys off the practice squad. A guy like Marquise Callaway, who signed 2 weeks ago, who was elevated for this game, knew what he was supposed to do, be in the right spot, be in the right position, because these guys are so prepared and they're so bought into the system and what he's doing.
Okay. You ask Niners coaches, players about Baker Mayfield, they'll to a man say he's playing the best ball of his career. He's making better decisions. You mentioned earlier something called Baker sacks. We know he still throws picks, but man, he's scoring a lot of touchdowns or throwing a lot of touchdown passes. So just how good is Baker, and how much has he improved since he's been in Tampa?
if the Bucs had a winning record right now, let's say that they beat the Falcons and beat the Chiefs or whatever like that, he should be anyways in the MVP conversation, but he would be probably one of the front runners in the MVP conversation. He's been playing that good, much better decision making. Three of his interceptions, one came out of a batted ball, and I guess you can put that on the quarterback. Two came on tip passes, which you put on the wide receiver, but it's a quarterback stat. The Baker sacks are still going to be there. He tries to do too much sometimes, but he's been a lot more efficient with his ball placement. And especially over the last 2 weeks, without the guys, without Mike and Chris, arguably the best wide receiver duo. Chris Godwin was on his way to an All-Pro and was the best wide receiver in football by many metrics: first downs, receptions, yardage, touchdowns, until he got injured. Mike Evans is starting to finally get recognition as one of the best wide receivers in NFL history, right. Not just today's game. So, he's been able to do that without those guys. He's been able to trust himself more and process better, getting through his reads, and that starts with the better blocking up front. But also know that he doesn't have to be the hero every game. He can check it down. He's got great, they operate a great screen game with the athletic blockers that can get out in front. He can check it down to his wide receivers. He can check it down to his tight end. And he just has a lot more comfortability, trust. Again, he's not bouncing around Baker anymore. He's home Baker. He's got a daughter. He's got a home in Tampa Bay. He's revered by the city. Everybody loves him. He's got an infectious personality. Everyone buys in. He's an outstanding leader. And he's just one of the guys, and I think that's part of what the Bucs were missing in the Brady years. Is Brady was so big, you're not going to catch him down at Hat Tricks having a beer on a Thursday after practice. Baker will be there with his offensive lineman. He does everything. He's like an offensive lineman. Baker is a quarterback trapped in offensive lineman trapped in a quarterback's body. He goes on vacation with those guys, and that's the kind of personality he has. So he's got everybody believing in him, buying in him, and knowing that, hey, doesn't matter what happens, we're still in this game. You look at the Ravens game when they came back, they were down like 20 points and they came back and lost by 10. They were still in it towards the end. You look at this past Monday night game, leads them on a scoring drive in downpour conditions with 27 seconds left. Should have went for 2 in my opinion, but they didn't. But people are all bought in on Baker Mayfield, whether you're their fan base, the Buccaneers, the players, the coaches, everyone in here is bought in on Baker, and there's a good reason why. And he's showing that, he's probably underpaid now.
Yeah, the Niners are looking at that contract thinking they wish Brock Purdy would accept that. And you know what? I don't think Baker would anymore too. If he were a free agent this year, he might be able to get double that. Okay. Mm-hmm. Give me your prediction for the final score and explain your pick.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with the Bucs. I picked them in my column before this season. I just feel like they got shellacked in 2022 with Brady, and last year they were really in that game. You look at the score. I think it was 10-3 or 10-7 at halftime, and the Bucs played really strong football against, at that time, one of the best teams in the NFL, certainly in the NFC, and they go to the Super Bowl. That team does. This year, 49ers are much different team. They're 4-4. Again, they lost McCaffrey, and they lost a lot of guys to injury, but they're just a much different team than they were last year. And I think the Bucs, they kind of figured out the recipe. I think with a system like Cohen has brought in that makes a lot of things look different. The window dressing that they can do. I think they can move the ball on offense a little bit better than they did last year. I think the defenses for the Bucs might not be as good as it was last year, but I think they kind of know what they're getting into. They faced this team 3 times. Again, it's a little bit of a different team on defense, but more of the same team on offense. I think going up against an offensive system like Cohen's in practice, again, it all starts from Mike to Kyle, branches off to Liam. It's a very similar West Coast type of system. I think that gives them leg up. And then I think when you look at the issues that the Bucs, the 49ers have had compared to the Bucs, I think they match up pretty well. The Bucs are the second best red zone offense in the league. 49ers are the 28th worst red zone defense in the league. They're struggling there. I think the Bucs have had tremendous success on third down, and the Chiefs defense has had, they've struggled on third down. So I think, you look on paper, and we just talked about it. You were a guest on my show. Again, appreciate that. The run defense, Bucks running game has been really well. And while on paper, the 49ers run defense looks good, they've also struggled. So I think all that kind of leads me to leaning towards the Bucks. If they can play that bend but don't break defense, keep them out of the end zone, make them settle for kicks, I think the Bucks can at home in much warmer weather. It's been like 80s with a real feel of 90. Bucks are wearing their white home jerseys again. So put you guys in the heat and the sun. I think this could be the year, the season, the year that they avoid the three-peat sweep and they finally get one. They know they need this one bad. 49ers need this one bad as well. But the Bucks need this one bad heading into their bye week, finish 5-5. I have them winning 27-23. Close game, but I have the Bucks coming out on top.
Niners haven't won back-to-back games all year. It's a 10 o'clock body clock game for them, and they're facing a Sean McVay disciple. They lost to McVay this year, gave up 27 points. They lost to Kevin O'Connell this year, gave up 23, but they also – Fred Warner forced a fumble at the goal line, on his own goal line. So it really could have been 30. I'm picking the Niners, and I don't know why. I'm not really sure why. Christian McCaffrey may be coming back, and I'm like scared. I feel like I'm scared to pick against him. But what you said has the ring of truth. JC Allen, thank you very much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Appreciate having me on, man.
All right. Have a good one.